It's a Tuesday afternoon, and Marcus is sitting in a parking lot outside an auto repair shop, staring at a quote on his phone for $1,100. His alternator died on the way to work. He got it towed. He sat in the waiting room for 2 hours, drinking bad coffee and answering emails on his phone like everything was fine. And now he's staring at $100 and doing the calculation that nobody wants to do in a parking lot on a Tuesday. He checks his checking account. $340. He checks his savings account. He has $340 and an $1,100 problem and nowhere to go with the math. He calls his sister. She can do $300. He puts $500 on a credit card at 24% interest. He calls the shop and asks if they can do a payment plan for the rest. They can't. He puts the remaining $260 on a second card. The car gets fixed. He drives home. And for the next 4 months, he pays interest on money he borrowed to fix a car that is now just his car again, a normal Tuesday that cost him an extra $180 in interest charges on top of the $1,100 repair. Money that is now simply gone. That's the real cost of zero, not the emergency itself. The emergency was always going to happen. The cost of zero is everything that gets layered on top of it when you have no buffer: the interest, the stress, the phone calls, the negotiating, the 4 months of digging out from a single Tuesday. My name is Nick, and I've spent more time than is probably healthy thinking about the specific, measurable, underreported cost of not having an emergency fund. If you've ever been in that parking lot literally or financially, hit subscribe, because today we're doing something different. We're not talking about whether you should have an emergency fund. We're building one in 60 days, starting from wherever you are right now, including zero. And by the end of this video, you'll have a specific target number and a specific plan, not a vague goal, not a motivational nudge, an actual system you can start tonight. Every personal finance resource on earth tells you the same thing. Build an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And that is genuinely good advice if you're trying to be fully protected. But as a starting point for someone who currently has nothing saved, save 3 to 6 months of expenses is one of the most paralyzing sentences in personal finance. Here's why. If your monthly expenses are $3,000, 3 months is $9,000. 6 months is $18,000. You're sitting there with $340 in your account, and someone just told you your goal is $18,000. That's not motivating. That's the financial equivalent of telling someone who just started running that their training plan begins with a marathon. The goal is correct. The sequencing is wrong. And bad sequencing is how people start strong, hit the first obstacle, do the math on how far they still have to go, and quietly stop. The 60-day sprint fixes the sequencing problem. Here's the psychology behind it. Your brain responds very differently to a finite challenge versus an open-ended lifestyle change. Save more money is a lifestyle change. It's permanent, abstract, and your brain has no clear finish line to work toward. Build a $2,000 emergency fund in 60 days is a sprint. It has a specific end date, a specific target, and a clear moment where you either did it or you didn't. Research in behavioral psychology consistently shows that people are more likely to complete goals with a defined endpoint than goals framed as ongoing habits. The 60-day window is long enough to build genuine momentum and find real money in your budget, but short enough that your brain treats it as a challenge to solve rather than a personality trait to develop. It's the difference between I'm going to be a saver, which requires an identity shift, and I'm going to win this specific 60-day challenge, which just requires showing up for 2 months. After 60 days of treating your money differently, your brain has largely rewired around the new behavior. The habits you build during the sprint tend to stick, because by the time the sprint ends, the new behavior no longer feels like discipline. It just feels like how you handle money now. Before we get to the plan, we need your number. Not the full 3 to 6 month number. Not yet. Your 60-day target. Here's how to calculate it. Pull out your phone right now and open your banking app. Look at your last 2 months of transactions and add up your true monthly necessity number: rent or mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, minimum debt payments, transportation to work. Nothing else. No subscriptions, no eating out, no entertainment. Just the expenses that would make your life genuinely difficult if they weren't covered. For most people reading this, that number lands somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500 a month, depending on where you live and your current obligations. Take that number and multiply it by 1. That's your 60-day target. 1 month of true necessities, not 3 months, not 6 months, 1 month. Why 1 month? Because 1 month of true necessities is the amount that converts a financial emergency from a crisis into an inconvenience. Marcus's $1,100 car repair would have been annoying at 1 month of savings. It would not have required calling his sister, loading 2 credit cards, and paying $180 in interest. It would have been a bad Tuesday, not a 4-month excavation project. 1 month of necessities is also psychologically achievable in 60 days. For most people, not easy, but achievable. And achievable is the only category that matters right now. The difference between a goal you complete and a goal you abandon is not motivation. It's whether the target was real enough to reach. Now, the plan. 5 parts. 60 days. Let's go. Part 1, open the right account today, not tomorrow. Today, before you close this video, your emergency fund needs to live in a separate account from your checking account. This is non-negotiable, and the reason is not complicated. Money that lives in your checking account gets spent, not because you're undisciplined, because your brain sees it as available, and available money gets used. The physical separation, even a digital one, adds just enough friction to keep the money where it belongs. The account you want is a high-yield savings account, not your bank's standard savings account, which probably pays somewhere around 0.4% interest. A high-yield savings account at an online bank currently pays somewhere between 4% and 5% annually. On a $2,000 emergency fund, that's $80 to $100 a year in interest, doing nothing except existing. Your bank's standard savings account would pay you about $8 for the same balance. The math takes 30 seconds, and it always wins. Good options that are widely available and FDIC insured include Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, and SoFi, but do a quick search for current high-yield savings rates before you open anything, because rates move. What doesn't move is the principle. Put your emergency fund somewhere it earns real interest, and somewhere that isn't your checking account. Open the account today. Transfer $1. You now have an emergency fund account. The account exists. That matters more than the amount right now. Part 2, find your sprint money. This is where most people assume they're stuck, because they look at their budget and see nothing left over. But here's what I've consistently found. Almost everyone has more sprint money available than they think. It's just not in obvious places. Start with the subscription audit. Pull up your last 2 bank statements and highlight every recurring charge. Apply the one honest question. If this disappeared tomorrow, would I immediately go re-sign up? Everything that answers no gets canceled today. The average person doing this exercise finds $80 to $150 a month in charges they're paying for things they don't value. That's $160 to $300 over 60 days toward your target before you've changed a single spending behavior. Next, look at your variable spending, specifically food. Not to eliminate enjoyment, but to audit waste. The average American household throws away approximately $1,500 worth of food per year, according to USDA data. That's $125 a month in groceries that gets bought and doesn't get eaten. For 60 days, shop with a list. Cook what you buy, eat what you cook. A realistic reduction in food waste alone is worth $50 to $80 a month for most households. Third, look for one-time sources. Do you have anything you could sell? Old electronics, clothes you haven't worn in a year, furniture you don't use, sports equipment collecting dust. A single afternoon on Facebook Marketplace or eBay can generate $100 to $400 for most households. This isn't a long-term strategy. It's a sprint injection, a one-time boost that meaningfully accelerates your 60-day timeline. Fourth, look at your skills. Is there anything you can do for money in the next 60 days that you aren't currently doing? Freelance work, a weekend shift, lawn care, tutoring, pet sitting, driving for a rideshare service 4 hours on a Saturday. You don't need a side business. You need a 60-day sprint contribution. Even one extra shift per week at $80 generates an additional $960 over 60 days. Add it up. Subscription cancellations, plus reduced food waste, plus one-time sales, plus one additional income source per week. For most people, this combination generates between $500 and $1. $500 over 60 days, on top of whatever they were already able to save. Combined with an automated transfer we'll set up in Part 3, that's often enough to fully fund a starter emergency fund within the sprint window. Part 3, automate the foundation. Every dollar you find in Part 2 means nothing if it doesn't move automatically to your new emergency fund account. This is the most important mechanical step in the entire plan, and it takes about 4 minutes to set up. Log into your bank account. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your new high-yield savings account on the same day your paycheck hits. The amount should be the minimum you know you can sustain, without causing problems in your checking account, even if that's $25 per paycheck to start. Why automatic? Because willpower is a depleting resource. Every time you have to manually decide to transfer money to savings, you are making a decision. And decisions are subject to moods, tiredness, competing priorities, and 1,000 small reasons why today isn't the best day. Automation removes the decision. The money moves whether you're motivated or exhausted, whether you had a good week or a rough one, whether you remember or forget. It moves because you set it up once and now it just goes. Set the automatic transfer for whatever you can do without causing overdrafts. Then, add every dollar from part 2 on top manually as you find it. The automation is the floor. The sprint money is the accelerant. Part 4, protect the account from yourself. This sounds harsh. It isn't meant to be. It's just acknowledging something true about how emergency funds fail. They don't usually fail because people can't save the money. They fail because people save the money and then spend it on something that isn't an emergency. A weekend trip that felt necessary. A sale that was too good to pass up. A dinner out with friends when the account balance felt comfortable enough to justify it. These aren't moral failures. They're predictable human responses to seeing money that feels available. 3 things protect the account. First, the physical separation. We already set up a different bank means a 2 to 3 day transfer delay, and that delay kills impulse withdrawals. Second, the named account. Name it something specific that creates psychological resistance to rating it. Emergency only or do not touch, or the name of the thing you're protecting yourself from. Never in that parking lot again. Research from behavioral economics shows named accounts have meaningfully lower withdrawal rates than unlabeled ones. Third, and this is the one people skip, define what counts as an emergency before you need to make that call under pressure. Write it down somewhere. An emergency is job loss, medical expense, essential car repair, essential home repair, or any expense that is both genuinely unexpected and genuinely necessary. An emergency is not a sale, a social event, a travel opportunity, a want that feels urgent. When you define the rules in advance, you don't have to make a judgment call while you're emotional about the money. You just check the list. Part 5, track it publicly. This one feels the most uncomfortable and works the most reliably. Research on goal completion consistently shows that people who share a specific goal with even one other person, a friend, a partner, an online community, are significantly more likely to complete it than people who keep the goal private. The mechanism is accountability, but also identity. When you tell someone I'm building my emergency fund in 60 days, you become the kind of person who does that, and people generally act in accordance with who they've said they are. You don't need to announce it broadly. Text one person today. Tell them you're doing the 60-day sprint and ask them to check in with you at day 30. That's it. One person, one check-in. The research says it's enough to meaningfully shift your completion rate. Alternatively, track it visually somewhere you'll see it. A simple chart on your phone's Notes app showing the balance growing. A sticky note on your bathroom mirror with the target and current balance updated weekly. The visual progress of a growing number is a behavioral reinforcement loop. The number going up makes you want to keep making the number go up. Use that. Quick note here, because I get asked about this constantly. The research process behind building content like this, finding the studies, structuring the arguments, turning dry financial data into something people actually watch, that's a learnable skill. It's exactly what we teach inside our community for people building faceless finance channels. If that's been on your mind, the link is in the description. No pressure. Back to your emergency fund. Now let's talk about the 3 obstacles that will try to stop you, because they will try. And knowing they're coming is most of the defense. Obstacle 1. The real emergency that hits during your sprint. This is the one that feels most unfair. You're 30 days in, you've got $800 saved, and the washing machine breaks. Do you use the emergency fund? Yes, that's what it's for. Do you stop the sprint? No, you reset the clock if you need to, but you don't abandon the system. One of the most important things the 60-day sprint teaches you is that building back is faster than building from zero, because you already have the infrastructure, the account, the automation, the habits. An emergency that hits during the sprint is not a failure of the plan. It's proof that the plan was necessary. Obstacle 2. The month where the numbers don't work. There will be a pay period where something unexpected eats into your sprint contributions. The car needs an oil change. A birthday comes up. Groceries were more expensive than planned. This is not a reason to pause the automation. Let the automatic transfer run no matter what. Even $25 moving automatically on a tough month keeps the identity of I am building this fund intact. Identity is more durable than motivation. Motivation runs out. Identity guides behavior even when you're tired and frustrated, and the month was harder than expected. Obstacle 3. The 60 days end, and you're not fully funded. This happens. Life is not perfectly cooperative with 60-day plans. If you reach day 60 with $1,400 instead of your $2,000 target, you did not fail. You have $1,400 more than Marcus had in that parking lot. You have the account, the automation, and the habits. You extend the sprint. You keep the automation running. The 60-day window is not a hard deadline, it's a motivational structure. What you built inside it is real regardless of whether the final number landed exactly where you aimed. Here's what happens after 60 days that most people don't expect. The money in the account starts to change how you move through the world. Not dramatically, not all at once, but you notice it in small moments. The unexpected bill that arrives and produces a mild inconvenience instead of a spike of adrenaline. The expense that used to require 4 days of mental calculation that you now just handle. The meeting at work where someone says something unreasonable, and you notice, almost surprised by yourself, that you feel slightly less trapped than you used to. That's the real return on an emergency fund, not the interest rate, not the security in the abstract. The specific, daily reduction in low-grade financial anxiety that you'd been carrying so long you forgot it was there. Researchers at Princeton found that financial stress consumes cognitive bandwidth in a way that measurably reduces problem-solving ability, the equivalent of losing a full night of sleep. Your emergency fund doesn't just protect you from emergencies. It gives you your brain back for the 350 days a year when nothing is actually wrong. And once the starter fund is built, you don't stop. You keep the automation running. You increase the transfer when you can. You work toward the full 3 months of true necessities. And then 6 months. But you get there the same way you built the first $2,000 one automated transfer at a time, in a named account at a separate bank, with one person holding you accountable and a number you check every week. Because watching it grow is its own kind of reward. Marcus is still paying off those credit cards. Not because he's bad with money, because nobody gave him a 60-day plan before the Tuesday his alternator died. You have the plan now. The only variable left is whether you open the account tonight. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here is financial advice. It's just the system I wish someone had handed Marcus before that Tuesday. If this gave you something concrete to work with, drop a comment telling me your 60-day target number. I read every single one. And if you want to understand what happens to your financial life once you've crossed that first real savings threshold, what actually changes, and why, that video is right there on the screen. Go watch that one next. I'll see you in it.